Hi, loves, and welcome to the With Love Always podcast, a podcast to help you live the life you were created for. We are your hosts and your friends, Bree
and Marissa,
and we're so grateful you're here.
We pray you listen and leave feeling more inspired, encouraged, and uplifted. Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode. I'm so excited for today's episode. It's going to be a fun one. We are officially in my favorite season. Is it both of our favorite seasons?
It's my favorite season because my birthday is in this season.
And
yours too. Well, I guess the first day of spring.
Yeah. We can count mine as being in it.
Yeah, I feel like it's like on the cusp.
Yeah, I just love spring so much. And so today we're just going to talk about all things spring, what we're doing to kind of reset. I feel like this is such a beautiful chance for you to just take a step back, kind of evaluate what this year has looked like so far, and kind of reset the intention moving forward. And so I stumbled upon this quote when I was preparing for the episode, and it said, "Spring reawakens areas that have gone dormant." And I think that is so beautiful. And even we can see it in nature where all of the leaves shed and animals and plants are going into hibernation, and now they're kind of being reborn and there's new life to it. And I personally am feeling that way myself. I feel like the start of this year, there were so many things, whether it was like emotional or physical healing and shedding that I had to do. And now just with the sun being out longer and just the days feel brighter, I'm just feeling a renewed sense of optimism and hope for what's kind of ahead. And I just hope that we can inspire you guys to feel that same way and just, create a sense of new joy moving forward. And I think there's so much to celebrate and so much to look forward to. So we just want to give you these little tips that are very practical that hopefully if you're kind of looking to hit the reset button. And so we're just going to kind of jump in and share them with you.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I feel like I'm going to need this episode as we're speaking, just because I think with the new year, there's always so much momentum behind a new year and starting it strong and having so many goals and so many ambitions and maybe trying a lot of new things. And I know I was right there with all of that. I mean, I just ran a marathon last weekend and I feel like so much of my life was rotating around that and just different goals that I had in my life. But I think if there's anything that I've realized within myself and even within conversations with friends, I think there's beauty in starting the year with so much momentum and starting it strong. But I think a lot of us are kind of feeling burnt out and really craving rest and really craving permission to be like, hey, I can still be working towards something in my life right now, working towards something this year, while also prioritizing rest, whether that's spiritual rest, physical rest, emotional rest, whatever it may be. And so, like I said, I feel like I know I need this episode so much. So I pray that this episode and this conversation today would just really encourage anyone out there who, like Marissa said, is just craving to hit that reset button and kind of just to feel refreshed. Let's enter this new season together with joy and restoration. And we're so excited to just jump into our 7 tips.
Last thing I want to mention to kind of set the intention of this episode is one of my favorite verses, which is Ecclesiastes 3, verses 1 through 4. And it reads, "To everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down, a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance." With kind of reading that, I did want to take one last thing before we jump in. I wanted to say, if it's been a tougher year, because I know for some people it has, I really just hope that we can reinstill a sense of hope towards the future, that there is such a beautiful season, even to the hard seasons. And I think it's hard, but there is something really special to the human experience in which sometimes we do have to spend a season mourning or resting, whatever it might look like, but that we're now entering into a new season. So it could be the change where maybe you've been having a hard start, but I just hope that this physical change in the seasons can also inspire an emotional change, and that you can step into kind of a new emotional season. So for a lot of these things, it's not really about adding something new. It's taking things away so that we can really just reinvest in that time. So jumping into the very first thing, and this is something that not everyone has to do, but I did it at the beginning of this year, and it has been such a game changer for me. And so I recommend, if you can at all, go on a digital detox. Doesn't have to be social media. It can look like whatever you want it to look like. So whether that's TV, taking weekends free from the internet. If you want it to be social media, that's what I did. And I think it is so helpful because it will kind of get you out of the habit. And honestly, just for me, like, it provided so much new space to just rest and reinvest into hobbies. And so I just went off of all social media and really tried to limit, unless I absolutely had to be on the internet or do something digitally. If not, I really tried to avoid it. And it just allowed me to feel like my bandwidth had expanded, and I just feel like so energized from doing it. So I still don't have social media on my phone. I'll like occasionally check it on my browser just so that I'm like somewhat aware of what's happening. But I just have loved being off of it, and I really don't have any intention to get back on, at least for a while, just because it's been so fruitful. So that's been a really fun thing to do. So if you can do it, maybe even just a weekend or one day a week, I think it can be really, really rewarding.
That's such a good one. And I feel like that's something I am so desperate to do and like need to do so much.
Yeah.
And I think like even kind of discussing the topic of like anyone out there who may be feeling burnt out with spring just arriving and with a new season approaching, I know for myself, and I think we discussed this in a previous episode. I can't remember which one. Oh, I think it was quality leisure versus what's
high quality
leisure. I know for myself, and maybe anyone else out there might feel similarly, when you are overextending yourself, or maybe you're just like overperforming in whatever area of your life, sometimes when you do so much throughout the day, you are looking for a quick fix to like be mindless and almost to numb you. And I have seen myself in that rhythm literally within this past week alone of like, I will come home after such a busy day and I am so quick to like want to mindlessly scroll because I'm so desperate to unplug my mind. But if there's anything I've realized, especially with spring being here and really wanting to like reset my mind and all of the things that come with that, is that is not resetting me. It is not making me feel rested. It's making me feel actually so exhausted. And it's something that I like to call a technology hangover or like social media hangover. I think I've said that also in a previous episode too. And so I cannot encourage anyone out there enough. I think it feels almost so out of the norm to take a break from social media. But even speaking on my behalf, I'm like, I am desperate to do this for my well-being and for like clearing out my mind. I think it'll be so good for literally so many of us.
Yeah.
So the next one is actually going to be kind of a funny one. It might sound contradicting to some, but it's actually taking a physical detox, if you will. And by that, I mean more so from physical activity. And by that might be super relevant to me. I don't know. But taking a physical and emotional detox. And so I think, as someone who did just come out of marathon training, my body specifically is just so exhausted from the ways that I've been overexerting myself. But regardless, even if you who is listening has not been training for a marathon and has not been overexerting yourself, I think a pattern and a rhythm that I'm hearing a lot of my friends express is, like I said, with the new year, there's so much momentum of like, I'm going to work out, I'm going to be on top of it, I'm going to be so disciplined, and I'm going to, do all these things and movements in order to honor my body. And while that is such a beautiful thing, I think I also want to like release and remind anyone out there that it's also okay to need to take a break. It's also okay if you have been moving your body or training for something or just being so disciplined that you actually, for your own sanity, need to take a step back from putting pressure on working out, from putting pressure on performing in this way. And, also giving yourself the grace, like life is getting busy probably for so many of us. And if working out is something that is stressing you out to get and squeeze into your day, give yourself permission to just subtract that from your day. And I know this is, like I said, might feel very niche to some people, and I pray that it appeals to more people than anyone who's just running like I was. But I think too, like I said, in conversations I'm having with friends of just like the pressure they're feeling to keep up with their, fitness routine and the pressure to feel a certain way, and then the stress that that's inducing on their well-being in the midst of such a busy week. It's like, give yourself the grace to subtract that if you need it. And that doesn't mean subtract like going outside and going on a brisk walk, but just taking the weight off of yourself that you have to overperform in this way. You are likely overperforming in a multitude of ways in your life. Don't allow this to be something that is intended to be a joy, cause you to feel stress. And also in the same breath, like, I think an emotional detox, I think something that I really want to encourage anyone out there in considering what you can release or let go of this spring season is, yes, sometimes it is physical. Maybe sometimes our bodies are just so exhausted, but sometimes it's also, and oftentimes it is, the pairing of our emotional exhaustion. So we'll dive into this a little bit deeper in another tip, but really taking a full-on examination of your mind and your well-being and your capacity, and what are the areas that you're feeling very emotionally depleted in, whether that is work, whether that's friendships, whether it's dating, whether that's all these things. It's like, what is something that you can detox yourself from? What is one, thing like on your mind constantly that you can now give yourself permission to let go of, or give yourself permission to have a boundary of when you will think about or when you will, be concerned about. And like a tangible example of this is like, I found myself the other day, like I woke up at like 6 a.m. and the first thing on my mind was like what I had to do for work that day. And though that's a beautiful thing and that is a sign of like my deep desire to accomplish and get something done, in that moment, I realized like, whoa, this is kind of invading my emotional well-being. I need to put a boundary up on the times of the day that I'm going to give myself permission to be thinking about my to-do list. 6 a.m. is not the time for me to worry about something that I can start at 9 a.m. And so just taking a look at your life and seeing, okay, how can I possibly physically detox as well as emotionally detox anything that is just feeling more of a chore than it is a joy.
Oh, I love that. And what I love, we didn't even really plan this, but when we were just coming up with ideas, the thread that connected them all was just wanting to just be like set free in a way, or like detox in some capacity. So do not feel like you have to do all of these tips. I would say just pick the one that sticks out to you, because the goal is ultimately just allowing us to be super intentional with obviously our time, but allowing ourselves to rest. And that's something we are such proponents of. And that connects to tip number 3, which for me is a deep declutter. This is a philosophy I'm trying to implement in literally every area of my life. I just keep telling myself 2024, fewer is better. It's quality over quantity. And so for this, I'm going to talk about physical space declutter, time declutter, and people declutter. We can make a whole episode on all of those. So I'm just going to skim through, starting with space. I did a deep closet clean out, because sometimes when I don't know where to start and my mind's feeling cluttered, I like to start with the most obvious. So I'll go like physical, and I just love cleaning. Like for me, that feels so refreshing to just like get my hands on something and start cleaning. And I just realized I was running into that issue. This might be very specific, but I was waking up every day and I noticed it was such a point of tension getting dressed. And I was like, I have nothing to wear. Like every morning I would say that, yet I had a closet full of clothes. And I really realized it's because it's actually that I had too much stuff and there were too many decisions I was having to make. And I literally went tried on every single item in my closet.
Oh, wow. That's so good.
It took like a whole Saturday, but it was so worth it. And I was like, if I cannot make an outfit, if I am not in love, if this does not fit me well anymore, like I am just going to sell or donate it. And I'm so happy I did that because I really feel like I went on a shopping spree, even though my closet is so much more empty, but it's because I can actually like mentally keep track of what I have. And so I just was like, oh my gosh, this is a game changer. And I've been trying to do that in other parts of our house and even just life, honestly. So even like with my calendar, a declutter, this might seem a little confusing because I'm like adding to the calendar, but I've actually started blocking out times that I cannot schedule things. So I'm like,
oh, that's good.
Yeah, like even weeknights or on the weekends, I'm like, I'm saying it now, like this is a day that's used for rest. And so I cannot make plans. I can't let work interfere. Like I was just kind of time blocking, and it really is like so helpful when you can like physically visualize it and you don't have to, like it's already been planned out for you in a way. And so that kind of connects to the last piece of the declutter, which is people. And that sounds really harsh. I don't mean to like actually declutter people.
Honestly, yeah, that's okay if it is harsh too.
For me, I was more so trying to, instead of thinking of subtraction, I like wrote a physical list and I was like, these are the people I'm going to invest in this season. And I'm going to be so intentional.
That's so good.
And if I have extra time, would love to invest in other people, but right now this is just all I have time for. And that was so helpful and so freeing for me. And yeah, it's just been such a depiction of like, I already feel so much more full, even though I'm investing in seeing less people, which has been neat.
That's so good. And I feel like that's something that sometimes we don't realize like we need to do, whether it's like we're spending time with somebody in our life that we love and adore, but maybe we should be prioritizing even deeper this friendship over here that maybe provides a little bit more for us, you know, like, and there's nothing wrong with that. And that's not something personal by any means. I mean, it can be sometimes, let's be honest. But like, I'll actually give a more tangible example, like me and dating, for example. I was just like talking to Marissa before this, and I was like, I'm just feeling a little exhausted and my capacity is a little low, but also it's because I'm choosing to give away my capacity. I mean, given I'm single, I should be dating, but also if I'm, you know, going on dates more than I'm like seeing or investing in some of my life-giving friendships, I can feel the
equilibrium,
the lack of equilibrium.
Oh yeah.
I can feel the lack of equilibrium in my like capacity. And it's like, no wonder I'm feeling tired, or like, no wonder I'm not feeling as filled, because, you know, getting to know someone new that I might never see again versus investing in the friendships who love me and support me and nourish me and fuel me, like it's not going to be the same investment of my time. And so, yeah, I think when you're like thinking of decluttering people, it's more so just like being laser focused of where a majority of your time is spent with people. Is it spent with crowds of people that you're not feeling connected with? Is it spent primarily with, I don't know, all these sorts of different relationships in our life, and how can we enhance and allow the relationships in our life that really matter be the top investors of our time and our capacity?
We have to do a full episode on that, because
it's a big one.
Yeah, that's a lot to unpack. And even as we're sharing, I'm like, oh wow, there's a lot that I think we've learned because it's not intuitive. Like,
no.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that. We could keep going. Another one, like I said, this could be so specific to me, but I just feel like someone out there is going to so resonate with and on the subject of like subtracting things from our life to really reset. And that is actually to be willing to break your routine. Break it, change it up. I am the first to say I am the most creature of habit. Like, I am so habitual and I thrive off of it. Like, and I thrive off of it, but I think I find sometimes too much pride in it. But I also, in finding pride in it, I associate my sense of worth with it. Mm-hmm. And that is just a dangerous, for those who are watching on YouTube and seeing my hand motions, that is a dangerous train of thought. And I think if there's anything for me, specifically referencing my season of life of no longer marathon training, a lot of my structures that I have built the past 4 months of my life on are suddenly like broken. And that for me, even though it's been 1 week since race day, is honestly like vulnerably sends me in a trip of like, well, what am I supposed to do with my time? I'm not going to be running as much anymore. I don't have to go to bed at 10 p.m. on a Friday night. I don't have to wake up and run at 8:30 in the morning on a Saturday. Like, so many of my structures are changing. And even this week alone, I had a moment where I was like almost feeling like anxious of like, I'm not being productive or I'm not doing enough. But I think that is the beauty of what releasing and allowing your routines to change does, is it invites new grace, but also new opportunity to rest. Not everyone is going to relate to my specific season of marathon training, but for whatever it has been in your life, like whether you've just been flourishing and going and being so disciplined in whatever it is, whether it's work, whether it's your personal endeavors, whether it's your personal friendships, I think there comes a point where it's like your routine is no longer serving you and you have to be okay with allowing that to be true. Mm-hmm. I think for myself, like truly, a new routine that I'm going to adopt is actually I'm going to give myself more permission to be sleeping in. Like, instead of waking up and going on runs early in the morning, and maybe now I'm going to be shifting my workouts to like noon. And that is something that honestly a previous version of Bree would have the hardest time giving myself grace to do, because I have like written this narrative in my head that I have to work out in the morning in order to be successful. And for whatever that looks like in your routine, I just really cannot encourage you enough, like, to find something in your routine that you can give yourself enough grace to break, change, and transform. Because I think sometimes we don't even realize that the thing that will actually revitalize us is changing things up and not trying to keep it the same, especially if it's just not serving you anymore, you know?
And that takes us to tip number 5. And this is implementing a Sabbath. As somebody who's always such a proponent of rest, I actually have never been amazing at a Sabbath.
Can you explain what that word means?
Yes.
For those who have never heard that word.
So good. It's basically a day that you just take to rest. It has a biblical meaning originally, but you don't have to be religious per se to uphold a Sabbath. When I say that, I more just mean taking a day of true intentional rest. Mm-hmm. And for me, first of all, I've been like, I don't know why. I guess I'm on like the Sabbath side of the internet, where I feel like I've been seeing people are even reading books, and I love hearing about how people Sabbath because it looks so different for everyone. And for some people, it's like for my husband, for example, he loves to like stay in bed and just be so chill and so relaxed. Actually, for me, because I like mostly work from home, I go a little stir crazy. And my idea of a day of rest is actually leaving the house, but in a very intentional way where I'm not having to plan things. I'm not running errands. I'm spending time outside. If I'm hanging out with friends, it's very unstructured. We're just like living the day with each other, and it's very chill. And so my rules are just on my day of Sabbath, I have no screens. Ideally, I still take my phone just for like contacting people. Yeah. No work. That's the main thing. I'm not doing any work. I'm not letting myself see the group chat, check the emails. And then also I really try to do no chores. Sometimes this is inevitable. Like sometimes you just need to pick up groceries or you just need to do your laundry. Mm-hmm. But I really try to fit those in so that it's not lumped into my day of rest. So I think a Sabbath is it's hard in the beginning. Like, it's not actually the easiest thing because it kind of feels like you're almost forcing yourself to do something. But once you get in the rhythm of it, it's something that I so look forward to. And I'm like, okay, I have a crazy week, but I have my Sabbath coming and I am so excited and I just love it. And the day feels long and it feels unhurried and it's just so restful.
I love that. And when you were speaking, it like makes me think of like something I want to encourage you guys and something I want to encourage myself to do, because I feel like I have been so absent of that. Like, I have not been intentional of like, today is going to be a day of rest, or my Sundays are going to be my day of rest. I feel like I personally have been in this like rhythm of like, go, 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 go. And it just does not serve me. And I think about seasons of my life when I have been more intentional of like, okay, Saturdays are Brie days. Like, whatever Brie wants, she gets. That sounds so silly. But like, if I want to go be the most active person in the world, I will, because that's filling me up that day. Or if I want to be so restful, that's filling me up that day. Or if I want to go work on my side projects, that's going to be what I decide that day. But essentially, like, giving yourself that designated day that's kind of a non-negotiable, whether it's a weekend or whether it's a weekday, if your schedule permits. And essentially, like, what I encourage you to do is like dream up your dream day. Like, what would your dream day look like? Like, we always hear people say like, oh yeah, if I wish I could do that, or I wish I had time. Like, what would your dream day look like? Would it be as beautiful and effortless as waking up, going on a walk, getting coffee, and spending the morning journaling for like 5 hours because you've given yourself permission to do that? Like, whatever your dream day is, whether it's one consistent thing or whether that is a variant thing, like, give yourself a designated day every week to have your dream day. And maybe it won't be your whole day. Maybe you don't have time to like designate to like an entire Sabbath, but even if it's like your dream morning, like, if you could choose, listen to your heart, listen to like your mind, your body, what would you spend the first hours of your morning doing? Uninterrupted, not rushed. And even, I dare say, going back to our tip number 1, not documented, unless that absolutely fills you. I have to say, sometimes that actually does fill me, documenting and posting on Instagram. I love it. But what would that look like if you also gave yourself permission to not document it, not feel rushed, not feel like anxious of like what you have to do that day? And truly, like I said, I think about times in my life and seasons of my life when I was the most rested. This was like number 1 priority. My feelings of rest are lacking because this has not been my priority. So I want to be so active in implementing this as ASAP. Okay, for our second to last tip, this might sound literally so easy, and I think this kind of dances around the relative idea of the previous tip I had of like changing up your routine, but I want to like get even more specific of like embracing change overall. And what I mean by that is, I think as people, when we are such creatures of habits, like, we are not really willing to like look for change or seek change, whether that's accepting change, whether that is, you know, going out and pursuing change, whatever it is. It's like, we love to stick to our routines, kind of like what I was saying in our previous tip. But something that actually has been such a small detail that I feel like is a little bit different than your routine thing that I was mentioning earlier is something I've been doing recently. And that is like making these minute little changes in like, you know, the restaurants I'm going to, or like the routine of like the walk that I go on, or little things like that. I know this sounds literally so simple, but I like within this past week alone have tried like 3 new restaurants, given I've gone out a lot this week. Don't talk to me about it. I know that's a whole problem within itself, but I've just had the chance to, you know, catch up with friends and go out a lot this week. And I have been in what I didn't even realize, like this rut of thinking of like, I have my designated spots, I have my designated coffee shops, I have my designated restaurants, I have my designated a lot of things. And as someone who does pride myself in like seeking change and like embracing change, I realize like I'm feeling also mentally and emotionally and spiritually in a rut because even my little daily decisions are all the same. Like I keep gravitating towards the same things. Sometimes that is so life-giving. And I know that sometimes for me, like the less decisions, the better. But I think I realized I'm feeling like I'm in a rut because I'm just following the same patterns that I've been following. And I think the same patterns are going to produce the same results until something changes. And so sounds literally so simple, but one of the ways that I've been embracing change and trying something new is like going to new restaurants. And so like this week, I like randomly on a whim went to these 2 restaurants that I have walked past. Can't even tell you how many times in Venice, would literally walk past them and be like, I'm never going to go there. That looks like nobody goes there. Like it looks like a hole in the wall. And I kid you not, it was these 2 hole in the walls places in Venice that literally had some of the most incredible food that I think I've had living in Venice for the past year. And it sounds so simple, but the way that it like excited me was like, oh my gosh, there's truly like no limits to the joy that you can have in like such a small moment of just trying something new and embracing something that you maybe normally wouldn't embrace, whether that is trying a new restaurant, whether that this is also something else I'm doing. I realized that same day that I walk the same way out of my house every single day when I go to the beach. Obsessed. We love routine. Like I said, we have routines for a reason. Going back to breaking your routines, but also embracing change. I had a moment where I was like, okay, Brie, for spring, you are not going to walk the same route that you've walked. You're just not. You are changing it up. Maybe not every day. That's too much change. But like, I'm going to give myself a designated different route to walk. And I kid you not, I've done that only a couple days. And it like actually makes me so excited to be embracing this change. I have walked to Venice so many times, and I cannot even tell you on like the attempts that I've tried to like go a different route. I'm like, how have I never noticed this before? How I've never seen this house before? How have I never walked past this before? Also wouldn't have like walked past the restaurant and been so convinced to actually go and try it the other day had I not made a little small change. And I really feel like in our humanness, like when we invite little changes, I think it also just opens doorways for greater change to come into our life. And I think sometimes when we are in the stagnation of routine or pressure or overexerting ourselves, sometimes it really is the joy and just accepting, embracing, inviting small changes into our life that really revitalize us. Whether it's food, your walking route, restaurants you're trying, coffee shops, or greater, whether it's your life decisions or like the people you hang out with, choose to spice it up with a little bit of change. And I just guarantee, whether it's small or whether it's grand or whether it's somewhere in between, you will feel a little spark of excitement for life that I think we all need.
That reminds me of our How to Romanticize Your Life episode.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I was thinking to what sometimes can drain me. And I'm someone who I love routines because they remove a lot of times that mental strain of like decision making and stuff. But I think with that said, sometimes you can do this. You feel like you're living the same day over and over again. And that can be freeing sometimes, but it also can lead to a place of just being drained.
Yes.
And I have definitely felt that. And I'm someone who needs to like actually tell myself like, you need to try a new recipe. Here's what you're going to try. And you're going to cook something new, because change takes planning. I feel like it's hard to, unless you're like a super spontaneous person, it's hard to, just like allow space for change. And that brings us to the very last tip, number 7, which I put to pick up a new hobby. If you just feel like, okay, none of these things are resonating and you just need something, I think picking up a new hobby can be one of the most joyful things ever. And I mean, we did our whole episode on high quality leisure. So if you want to know anything in more detail about this, I so encourage you to listen to that episode. And we've just we've seen this lead to so much fruit in our life that I couldn't leave this out, because I feel like, especially with the change in weather, now is the perfect time, whether it's something exercise related, something you can do in your home, something you can do with your friends. Trying something new can be really just like the most rewarding thing. So
yeah, I even think for me, like now that I'm not marathon training, I'm like, I'm so ready to go back surfing again.
Yes.
Like, I haven't surfed in like months.
Same.
It's crazy.
I miss it so much. There are so many things I'm like, I'm just so ready to, for me, like on the opposite end, I've allowed my body to rest so much. I'm so ready to just get out and just try new things.
Yeah, I agree. I'm so excited. I don't know what other new things I want to try, but I feel like my time is going to look so differently, or it gets to be dedicated to such different things that I'm like, I think even for me, something that I'm like ready to try, or I guess pick up a new hobby in quote unquote, is like the way I'm decorating my home. Like, I think I keep like starting and pausing because realistically it sounds so silly, but it's like we only have capacity for so much. And though I love my home so much, like I haven't invested the time that I wanted to. And so maybe that's going to be one of the hobbies, if you will, that I'm going to invest in, of like my Facebook Marketplace searches. And,
so fun.
And just like getting that to be the space that I want it to be.
I love that. That's a really sweet one. Okay, so to conclude this episode, I know we just spelled out a lot of different tips, but I think our biggest encouragement is to, of course, rest, but also just be so present as we're entering a new season. Allow for it to just be a time in which you pause. We don't want years to fly by. I feel like the older I get, I'm like, I just want to treasure this year. I want to be so present. I want to observe all of the beautiful changes in my life, even in nature. I'm like, I want to notice the flowers blooming and the days feeling longer and brighter and the warmer weather, and even just like seeing animals come out of hibernation in our yard and on our walks. And I just feel like this is such a time in which we can just sit and be so present and notice. I think starting with the physical is a good place to start, of starting with nature, but then seeing how that carries through our life. And so we hope that this episode kind of inspired that.
So with all of that said, by the time you guys are listening to this, we are actually going to be taking our own advice and pressing the reset button on ourselves. And so by the time you're listening to this, we would have already taken a 2-week break, but we are choosing to take a 2-week break from putting up episodes just because we ourselves like are in need of just feeling revitalized. And we want to be so sure that our hearts, our intention, our time, our minds, and all of that good stuff, both personally and together as a unit, are giving it the space and time it needs to really just feel, revitalized and just rested and just kind of press the reset button. So like I said, by the time you guys are listening to this episode, we will have already taken the break. We will be back in business, but we are so excited to truly just honor the friendship that we all share and also honor our own advice by taking a little spring break, if you will, from the podcast. So hopefully that you guys are not sad these next 2 weeks. I mean, we have literally so many episodes that y'all can dive into, or hopefully did dive into while we were away. But with that said, no worries, because we're back, baby, and we're going to keep it going.
So for today's Love Notes, of course, no surprise at all, it is Love Notes Spring Edition. So starting with the first word that comes to mind when you think of spring, what is it?
I don't know why. Maybe I have it because I have it tattooed on my body. Love. I just think of love, but like not love only romantically, not love and not just with love always, but I just think of like, I think I love spring because I love just, how many times am I going to use that word? I love being a witness of new life. And I think new life brings new wonder. And even with like the days being longer and with like the flowers blooming in my neighborhood, the joy that it makes me feel is like truly unmatched. And I just feel like you kind of witness it in nature, but you witness it in people, of like this awakening. of like, oh my gosh, like there's so much to look forward to. And I adore that. I love that. And there's something that just feels like the air. Like it literally feels like the presence of love in spring. I don't know.
You know what? That reminds me. I was like, all of a sudden I feel like everyone's getting engaged and I'm like, it just is like spring just is the time for love. So that's good. The words that came to mind were revitalize was the first one.
It's a good one.
And then I also thought of the word bloom, which was funny because you had said bloom.
Yeah.
And I love that word.
I thought of that word too.
Okay, favorite spring clothing item?
I think dresses, just more dresses. I have so many dresses that I want to wear this spring, like new dresses.
I love dresses.
So I think, that's one of my favorite things to wear in the spring. Also, like not having to wear my puffer jacket anymore is kind of a win.
Yeah.
It's kind of a W.
I was going to say just like little blouses, like even what you're wearing. I'm like, I love to just be able to wear a top and you don't have to worry about a jacket covering it up.
So true.
I'm like, I love just a good top with jeans. That is my forever staple. So I love spring for that.
I love that.
Okay, something you're looking forward to this spring.
I am looking forward to getting back out and surfing again. I'm looking forward, I haven't gone on a lot of hikes recently. And I want to just like go back hiking again. I think because I was training for so long, like I could not expedite any extra energy, or I was choosing not to. But like I want to go like on an intense hike. Like I want to go to like Yosemite and go hike. So I think that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm actually entered, for anyone who's like a national park junkie, I entered the lottery for Yosemite to hike Half Dome. And it's not a guarantee that you'll get like the permit to hike it, but if I get accepted, I would love to go hike Half Dome this spring.
I love that so much. That sounds so magical. Yeah, I think obviously surfing, that's a huge one that I'm looking forward to. Honestly, just more beach days. I feel like we'll catch like sunset, but I'm excited to just like sit in the sun and lay out. And I also love doing like little staycations at different beach towns. That's like my favorite thing.
So cute.
And I'm so bad at like planning actual trips, but we love to do like spontaneous weekend staycation. So I'm so excited.
I love that.
Yeah. Okay, next one is favorite spring picnic item.
Honestly, like a sandwich. I mean, at least if we're talking about food, like I love something about eating a sandwich on the beach. Oh my gosh, I don't know why that just like screams like spring and summer. I actually did that not this week, but last week. I like got sandwiches at this new place I tried and just sat on the beach and had a little picnic with my sparkling water. And I was like, this is like the best day of my life. But it's the little things. I love a good sandwich on a spring day.
I love sandwiches, but I'm going to say fruit. Any kind of like fruit. Like I'm thinking of a watermelon. Sounds really good.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, any kind of fruit.
When summer comes around, I think it actually is now in spring too. I don't think this is everywhere. But this is where I live. They probably have it here too. There's a fruit stand guy.
Oh yeah, you love your fruit stand. Watch out.
If I start seeing him, I'm going to freak out. So the fruit stand guy, he basically like gives you like a tub of mango, pineapple, watermelon, and like melon. And you can choose like all watermelon or all pineapple. Like you don't have to get the mixed fruit. I get the mixed fruit. And then you can choose if you want the tahini on top. I ask for extra. Oh my gosh.
Do you do the lime on top?
I do the lime too.
So good. I miss that.
Good. I literally will eat the whole thing. Like I actually will.
Yeah, as you should.
It's so good.
That sounds incredible. Favorite spring smell?
This one's a hard one. I think honestly, like any really strong scent of like flower. I think in my neighborhood specifically, I don't know about your neighborhood here, but like in where I live in Venice, I swear my street is just like touched by the hand of God. I don't know what it is. But in the spring, the amount of flowers that are blooming all along down my street is insane, and I'm already starting to see some of it. And not all flowers have a super strong smell. Like, I think there's really some that are super distinct, but I think anytime that I walk like past a flower or like a bush of flowers or whatever it's called and like I can smell the aroma of just like the fragrance of any flower, no specific one, that is just like my favorite sign of spring. I just love it.
I feel like I don't have a very fragrant street, but what's funny is I was walking maybe like 2 weeks ago and I was walking a New Way. This is huge for me.
Go.
And I passed this house and I was like, oh my goodness. And I like walked by it a few times because I was like, this reminds me, it like took me back to my childhood. And I think it's a memory from like being in Hawaii. I think it was like a native, like those like, you know, those flowers that like grow all over in Hawaii.
Yes, like
they're really colorful
ones like this.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, I feel like this sounds so crazy because it's just a smell, but it like awakened something in me. And that truly was like the first sign of spring because it was still kind of cold. And I was like, it's gonna be a good spring. I was like, that was all I needed.
Aww.
So that, but then also I think my like true favorite smell, which I don't know if this is spring specific, but I was thinking basil. I love the smell of basil.
It does smell so yummy.
And yeah,
that's a good one.
Final question is favorite spring break weekend trip.
I feel like weekend trips that I want to take is like, I want to go to like different like beaches. Like I still have never been to, what's it called? Big Sur. And I want to like go to Big Sur like on a long weekend. I want to go to like a national park on a long weekend, like in California. I think it's still like snowy. It is still snowy in like Mammoth, and your girl's not much of a skier, but some of my friends are still itching to go. So that could be a fun weekend trip. So those are all like things I've like kind of been thinking of in my head, but I have no idea. I think that's one of the things about California that I love so much, at least for me who's still relatively new here. It's like there's so much to go explore that is literally maybe 2 hours, 3 hours away at most. A weekend could make anything happen, you know?
That's so true. Last spring, I discovered Bodega Bay, which is kind of like Big Sur vibe. It's like Northern California, and it is truly the most magical place I think I've ever been. And I would just love to go back. So there, and then also we always go to Laguna like every year. My husband and I have made it. It's like one of our few traditions. And we have a little like tiny little like beach shack hotel that we like to stay at. And it's like nothing special or fancy, but we just love those trips. And we like don't drive. We'll just like walk around and like be at the beach all day and like grab food. And it's so fun. I just love it.
So fun. That even reminds me, like, I haven't been to like Newport in a while.
I know. We need to go.
I am craving, what's it called? Bear Flag?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Get me a burrito from Bear Flag pronto.
We had a little phase, I don't remember when this was, like a few years ago, where my husband and I, like when we were living in LA, and keep in mind, Newport's like at least an hour drive. If you time it wrong, it can be like 2 hours away.
2.5.
And we would just like say, like if we didn't know what we were going to do that night, this was when I was in college, so this was probably longer ago because I'm like, no responsibilities.
Yeah.
We would just be like, do you want to go to Bear Flag? And we'd be like, sure. And just literally drive down at like 7 p.m. I'm like, who were we? It was a different time.
That's so fun. I need
that energy.
I need that energy too. I saw that TikTok recently of like this girl. I don't remember exactly the coffee shop, but it was her and her boyfriend, and I think they live in LA too. And they're like, on the weekends, we always go to Newport, I believe it's Newport, and always go to this one coffee shop and order this one drink. That was the most vague description ever. But I'm like, I need to go and try it. So that's like such an easy like day trip, not even a weekend trip, like a day trip to make.
Oh, well, we hope you guys loved this very spring themed episode, and hopefully it's getting you so excited for this beautiful season that we're in. And we're so excited to be back and for all the new episodes to come. And we will see you in our next one. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you so much for listening. We pray this episode was encouraging and life-giving. If you found it valuable, please share it with a friend, leave a review, and subscribe.
And be sure to follow us along over on Instagram at With Love Always Podcast. Signing off with all of our love always, Bree
And Marissa.